The abandoned dance studio echoed with cruel laughter. Brittany Walsh and her crew formed a perfect circle, phones raised like weapons, capturing every humiliating second. In the center, a figure moved with impossible grace across the dusty hardwood floor. What started as forced humiliation had transformed into something else entirely fluid. Serpentine movements that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Chloe's body undulated in ways that made the bullies step back instinctively. Her spine curved and straightened with predatory precision. Then, in one explosive motion that seemed to flow from the very earth itself, she rose. Brittany's confident smirk vanished as Chloe's hand struck faster than sight, connecting with pressure points that dropped the ringleader to her knees. Madison rushed forward, only to find herself on the ground, gasping, unsure how she'd gotten there. Ashley barely had time to register the threat before precise strikes to her solar plexus left her doubled over, fighting for air. 3 girls down, 1 standing. The phones were still recording, but now they captured something very different than what they'd intended. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning mist clung to Jefferson Valley high like secrets nobody wanted to share. Chloe Martinez pulled her black windbreaker tighter as she approached the imposing brick facade. Another new school. Another chance to perfect the art of invisibility that had kept her safe for 3 years. She'd developed a system. Walk with purpose but avoid eye contact. Dress in neutral colors that didn't draw attention. Keep conversations short and forgettable. Most importantly, never let anyone see what lay beneath the carefully constructed facade of ordinary. The hallways of Jefferson Valley buzzed with the familiar energy of teenage hierarchy. Designer backpacks proclaimed status. Expensive sneakers marked territory. The latest phones served as both shields and weapons in the daily battle for social dominance. Chloe navigated it all like smoke, present but untouchable. Her assigned locker sat in the junior wing, number 238. The combination stuck twice before yielding to her gentle persistence. As she organized her sparse belongings, a shadow fell across the narrow metal space. Fresh blood. The voice belonged to a girl with platinum blonde hair and eyes like winter ice. 3 others flanked her information brunette twins who could have been carved from the same block of marble, and a redhead whose designer clothes probably cost more than most families spent on groceries. Chloe continued arranging her notebooks, projecting calm indifference. "Excuse me," she said quietly, attempting to step around the human barricade. "I'm Brittany Walsh." The blonde spoke as if the name should carry weight. "This is my school, which makes you my concern. Madison and Ashley Sinclair." She gestured to the twins. "And Rebecca Chun. We run the social ecosystem here. Congratulations." Chloe's voice remained flat, unimpressed. Something flickered in Brittany's eyes. Students at Jefferson Valley didn't respond to her with indifference. Fear, admiration, desperate attempts at friendship, these she understood. But this new girl's complete lack of reaction was unprecedented. "You know what I think?" Rebecca stepped closer, her expensive perfume creating a cloying cloud. "I think someone needs an orientation. Help her understand how things work around here." The warning bell saved Chloe from immediate confrontation. Students scattered toward their first period classes, but Brittany's gaze lingered like a promise. This wasn't over. It was barely beginning. A peak chemistry occupied a lab on the 3rd floor, all blacktop tables and glass beakers that caught the morning light. Chloe chose a seat near the back, optimal for observation while remaining peripheral to the social dynamics playing out around her. She'd learned to read rooms quickly, which groups held power, who could be trusted, where the fault lines lay beneath seemingly peaceful surfaces. Dr. Patricia Holbrook entered with the kind of energy that suggested genuine passion for her subject. Gray-haired and sharp-eyed, She commanded immediate attention without raising her voice. Chemistry, she announced, is about transformation. Stable elements combining to create something entirely new, often with unexpected properties. As if summoned by the word unexpected, Brittany Walsh swept into the classroom 30 seconds after the final bell. Dr. Holbrook's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. Social hierarchy, it seemed, extended even into academic spaces. Miss Walsh, how generous of you to join us. Please take a seat so we can begin. Brittany's gaze swept the room and landed on Chloe. Without hesitation, she claimed the seat directly behind her target. The message was clear: escape would not be permitted. Throughout the lecture on molecular bonds and chemical reactions, Chloe felt the weight of hostile attention. Pencils accidentally dropped near her feet. Whispered comments about her thrift. Store clothes. Small provocations designed to test boundaries and establish dominance. She endured it all with the same serene expression she'd worn since walking through Jefferson Valley's doors. But those watching closely might have noticed how her breathing remained perfectly controlled, how her posture never shifted from its alert relaxation, how her dark eyes occasionally tracked movement with predatory precision. The cafeteria at lunch revealed Jefferson Valley's social geography in vivid detail. The popular kids claimed the center tables like conquering armies. Athletes formed their own kingdom near the windows. Academic achievers huddled together by the vending machines, protecting their GPAs like precious treasures. Artists and theater. Kids created a bohemian enclave in the far corner. Chloe purchased a simple salad and found an empty table against the wall. She ate methodically, using the relative quiet to study the complex web of relationships surrounding her. Every school had its own unique ecosystem, but the fundamental patterns remained constant: predators and prey, those who wielded power and those who submitted to it. Sitting alone on your first day? The voice belonged to a boy with kind eyes, behind wire-rimmed glasses. Thomas Kim, according to the student ID clipped to his backpack. That's either incredibly confident or incredibly naive. Which do you think? Chloe asked, not looking up from her food. Thomas considered this seriously. Confidence. But confidence can be dangerous here. Brittany Walsh doesn't like competition. I'm not competing with anyone. Doesn't matter. She decides who's a threat. He glanced around nervously. Just be careful. She's destroyed kids for less than what you did this morning. Before Chloe could ask what he meant, the cafeteria's energy shifted. Conversations quieted. Students turned to watch as Brittany's group approached with purposeful strides. They moved. Like a pack, coordinated and lethal. Mind if we sit? Brittany didn't wait for an answer. Sliding onto the bench across from Chloe, the twins flanked her while Rebecca positioned herself to block the most direct exit route. Actually, I do mind. Chloe's voice remained conversational, as if discussing the weather. See, that's interesting. Brittany leaned forward, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Because nobody else in this school has ever told me what they mind. It makes me curious about you, Chloe Martinez. The use of her full name wasn't accidental. They'd already researched her, probably pulled her schedule and personal information from the school database. Brittany Walsh was more than just a high school bully, she was a strategist. Curiosity killed the cat, Chloe observed mildly. Good thing I'm not a cat. Brittany's laugh held no warmth. I'm more of a apex predator, and this is my territory. Congratulations, Chloe repeated her morning response. Your point? The casual dismissal hit its target. Brittany's composure cracked slightly, revealing something harder and more dangerous. Underneath. My point is that new students need to understand the natural order. Some people lead, others follow, and some ... Her gaze raked over Chloe's modest clothes and practical backpack. Crawl. Chloe set down her fork with deliberate precision. When she looked up, something had shifted in her dark eyes. For just a moment, Brittany caught a glimpse of depths that made her inexplicably nervous. "I don't crawl for anyone," Chloe said quietly. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Around the cafeteria, students sensed the tension and began to watch more openly. This was how legends started at Jefferson Valley, with quiet moments that exploded into something bigger. "We'll see about that." Brittany stood, her crew following in perfect synchronization. "Welcome to Jefferson Valley, Chloe. I hope you survived the experience." As they walked away, Thomas Kim let out a breath he'd been holding. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Chloe returned to her salad as if nothing had happened. "I ate lunch." "You declared war on the most powerful girl in school. She declared war on me. I just didn't surrender immediately." Chloe's voice carried a hint of something Thomas couldn't identify. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness. That's their first mistake. What's their second?" Chloe's smile was barely visible, but it sent an unexpected chill down Thomas's spine, assuming they know who they're dealing with. The afternoon brought a series of calculated provocations. Books knocked from desks during passing periods. Deliberate collisions in crowded hallways. Whispered comments about scholarship students who didn't belong at prestigious Jefferson Valley. Each incident was minor enough to avoid official notice, but significant enough to establish a pattern. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Chloe absorbed it all with the same imperturbable calm. She picked up her scattered materials without complaint, apologized when bumped into, even though she was clearly the victim, maintained perfect composure in the face of increasingly bold harassment, but those who looked closely might have noticed how she moved through the halls. Her steps were too smooth, too controlled. Her awareness of her surroundings is too complete. When Madison Sinclair accidentally spilled coffee near her feet, Chloe's avoidance was a fluid sidestep that looked almost like a dance move in a P-World history. She found herself seated next to Rebecca Chun, who spent the entire period making snide comments about students who thought they could rise above their station. Chloe took meticulous notes on the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, occasionally adding observations that demonstrated a deeper understanding of power dynamics than any high school student should possess. Interesting perspective on the collapse of the Roman Empire, Mr. Davidson noted when she offered an analysis of how internal corruption weakened the military's effectiveness. "Have you studied military history extensively?" "I've had some exposure to it," Chloe replied carefully. Rebecca leaned over with false sweetness. "Let me guess your dad was in the military?" "That would explain the hand-me-down clothes and discount haircut." Chloe's pen stopped moving for exactly 3 seconds. When it resumed, her handwriting was perfectly steady, but something had changed in the air around her. Mr. Davidson, a veteran himself, noticed how her posture had shifted into something that looked suspiciously like a combat stance. The final bell released students into the afternoon sunshine, but Chloe's day was far from over. She made her way to the old arts building, a structure that had been abandoned when the new Performing Arts Center was built 5 years earlier. The building was supposed to be locked, but she'd noticed during her morning reconnaissance that the basement window on the east side had a broken latch inside. Dust motes danced in shafts of light that filtered through grimy windows. The old dance studio on the second floor still had its mirrors and practice bars, though both were clouded with years of neglect. This would serve her purposes perfectly. Chloe set down her backpack and began to change. Off came the modest windbreaker and practical jeans, replaced by form-fitting black clothing that moved like a second skin. She secured her long dark hair in a tight bun and checked her reflection in the clouded mirror. For the first time since arriving at Jefferson Valley, she allowed her true self to surface. The careful mask of ordinary teenage anonymity fell away, revealing something far more dangerous underneath. Her movements as she began her training routine were fluid and predatory, each stretch and stance flowing into the next with serpentine grace. This was who she really was. Not the quiet scholarship student or the easy target that Brittany Walsh imagined. She was something else entirely, something that had been forged in places where survival demanded more than social maneuvering. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but the words made her blood run cold. Heard you met my daughter today. Looking forward to meeting you myself. Richard Walsh, Chief of Police. Chloe stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. So Brittany's father was the police chief. That explained the girl's sense of untouchability, her confidence that consequences would never reach her. It also meant that Chloe's carefully constructed new identity might not withstand serious scrutiny. If Chief Walsh decided to dig into her background, he might find connections that were supposed to stay buried. People she'd left behind. Promises she'd made to stay hidden. She resumed her training with increased intensity, her body flowing through forms that had been drilled into her muscle memory through years of relentless practice. Each movement was precise, economical, deadly. Ancient techniques passed down through generations of warriors who understood that sometimes the only way to survive was to become the apex predator. Outside, the sun was setting over Jefferson Valley, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Inside the abandoned dance studio, Chloe Martinez prepared for a war she'd hoped never to fight again. But some battles chose you, regardless of how well you hid or how carefully you planned. As she moved through her final sequence, a shadow passed by one of the upper windows. Someone had been watching. Someone now knew that the quiet new girl harbored secrets that could reshape everything they thought they understood about power at Jefferson Valley High. The real question was whether they would be smart enough to walk away or foolish enough to push further into territory where predators hunted and only the strongest survived. Tuesday morning brought a crystalline clarity that made everything seem sharper, more dangerous. Chloe arrived at Jefferson Valley to find her locker decorated with printed photographs, crude snake imagery mixed with vicious caricatures. Students gathered in clusters, whispering and pointing as she calmly removed each image, folding them neatly before placing them in a manila envelope. Documentation was everything in warfare, whether on a battlefield or in a high school hallway, artistic. She murmured to herself, noting the sophisticated photo manipulation. This wasn't random teenage cruelty. Someone had invested significant time and technical skill in the assault. Brittany Walsh materialized at her side like a predator sensing weakness. Admiring the gallery? Rebecca's quite talented with digital art. She's thinking of majoring in graphic design. Tell her she shows promise, Chloe replied, sliding the envelope into her backpack. The symbolism is particularly sophisticated. The response clearly wasn't what Brittany had expected. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't quite hide the flash of uncertainty that crossed her features. Most people would be upset. I'm not most people. No, you're really not. Brittany's smile took on a predatory edge. Which is why this is going to be so much fun. First period advanced placement physics provided a temporary sanctuary. Dr. Elena Rodriguez commanded respect through competence rather than fear, and her classroom operated under strict academic protocols that even Brittany Walsh couldn't easily circumvent. Chloe found herself partnered with a quiet Asian boy named David Park for a lab experiment on momentum energy transfer. Heard about your locker, David said quietly as they calibrated their equipment. Brittany's just getting started. Last year she destroyed Kevin Morrison for accidentally bumping into her. He transferred schools. What did she do? David's hands stilled on the measuring instruments. Created a fake social media profile using his photos, then had conversations with it, pretending to be him. Made it look like he was talking to himself. Planning to hurt other students. Posted screenshots everywhere. The administration had to investigate, even though everyone knew it was fake. Chloe absorbed this information while adjusting the pendulum height. Brittany Walsh wasn't just cruel, she was strategically brilliant. The fake profile attack demonstrated sophisticated understanding of digital manipulation and psychological warfare. Why didn't anyone stop her? Her father is Chief Walsh, her mother is Judge Margaret Walsh, her uncle is Congressman Frank Walsh. David's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The Walsh family basically owns this town. Fighting. Brittany means fighting all of them. Their experiment proceeded in focused silence, but Chloe's mind raced with tactical calculations. She was dealing with more than high school social dynamics. This was political power consolidated across multiple generations. The kind of entrenched authority that could make people disappear from official records, if necessary. During the passing period, Madison Sinclair accidentally slammed into Chloe with enough force to send her books flying. As Chloe knelt to gather the scattered materials, Madison planted her designer boot firmly on one of the textbooks. "Clumsy me," Madison said sweetly. "Good thing these books belong to the school. Wouldn't want you to have to pay for damage." Chloe looked up from her crouched position, studying Madison's stance and balance. The girl was athletic, probably tennis or volleyball, based on her muscle development, but she carried her weight too far forward. A simple ankle sweep would put her on the ground in less than a second. Instead, Chloe simply waited. The standoff stretched between them like a taut wire. Students slowed their pace, sensing drama. Phones emerged from pockets, recording devices ready to capture whatever happened next. Madison's confidence began to waver as Chloe remained motionless, patient as a coiled serpent. Problem here? Thomas. Kim appeared at Chloe's shoulder, though his voice shook slightly with nervous energy. "No problem," Chloe said calmly, still looking up at Madison. "Just waiting for this to resolve itself." Something in her tone made Madison step back involuntarily. The book was forgotten as she hurried away, her twin sister Ashley falling into step beside her. Thomas helped Chloe collect her scattered materials, but his hands trembled slightly. "You looked like you were about to do something," he said quietly. "Like what?" "I don't know. Something dangerous." Chloe studied his face, noting the genuine concern mixed with curiosity. Thomas Kim was more perceptive than most. That could be useful or problematic, depending on how much he chose to observe. But as they walked toward their next classes, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that he'd witnessed something significant. The way Chloe had remained motionless wasn't passive, it was predatory. Like a snake waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Lunch brought escalation disguised as coincidence. Chloe carried her tray toward the same wall table she'd claimed the previous day, only to find it occupied by 3 junior boys she didn't recognize. Their placement was too strategic to be accidental. They'd been positioned there deliberately. She approached the nearest empty table instead, but before she could sit, Ashley Sinclair appeared with a large group of sophomore girls. "Sorry, we're saving these seats for friends." The next table hosted Rebecca Chun and several members of the Academic Honor Society, all conveniently too busy studying to acknowledge Chloe's presence. Table after table revealed the same pattern. Every available seat somehow became unavailable. The moment she approached, the systematic exclusion was precisely orchestrated, driving her toward the center of the cafeteria where Brittany Walsh held court at her usual table. The message was clear: submit to the social hierarchy or eat standing up like an outcast. Chloe surveyed the room with strategic eyes, calculating angles and exit routes. Then she did something unexpected. She walked directly to the trash bins, disposed of her untouched lunch, and left the cafeteria entirely. "Where are you going?" Thomas caught up with her in the hallway outside. "Library. More peaceful there." "You can't let them win like this." Chloe paused, turning to face him with an expression that made him step back instinctively. I'm not letting them win anything. I'm choosing my battles. In the library, she claimed a corner table with clear sightlines to all entrances. Her laptop emerged from her backpack, and she began what appeared to be homework, but was actually reconnaissance. Jefferson Valley High School's student database, social media networks, family connections, all of it mapped and analyzed with military precision. The Walsh family's influence extended even deeper than David Park had suggested. Chief Richard Walsh controlled local law enforcement. Judge Margaret Walsh presided over juvenile and family court. Congressman Frank Walsh sat on committees overseeing education funding and youth services. 3 branches of power protecting. A teenage sociopath who had learned to weaponize institutional authority, but power structures always had vulnerabilities. Every network contained weak points that could be exploited by someone who understood leverage and timing. Chloe had been trained by experts in finding those pressure points. Her research was interrupted by the soft sound of approaching footsteps. Victoria Sterling, the student body president, slid into the chair across from her. Unlike the others, Victoria moved with genuine confidence rather than manufactured bravado. Mind if I sit? Chloe gestured to the chair without looking up from her screen. Free country. Is it though? Victoria opened her own laptop, but instead of working, she studied Chloe with intelligent gray eyes. Because it seems like certain families think they own this particular piece of it. This was interesting. The student body president expressing doubt about the established power structure suggested potential fractures in what appeared to be monolithic control. You're the girl who told Brittany Walsh she doesn't crawl for anyone, Victoria continued. That took either incredible courage or incredible stupidity. Which do you think? Honestly, I'm hoping it's courage. This school needs someone who can't be bought, threatened, or intimidated. Chloe finally looked up from her laptop. Victoria Sterling was different from the others, older somehow, despite being the same age. Her eyes held the weight of someone who'd seen too much and compromised too often. What happened to you? Chloe asked quietly. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. Freshman year, I thought I could change things. Ran for class representative on a platform of fairness and accountability. Made the mistake of questioning why the Walsh family's charitable foundation always seemed to benefit from school fundraising contracts. And my parents' business lost 3 major city contracts within a month. Dad's construction company went from thriving to barely surviving. Mom's catering service was suddenly deemed not up to health standards, despite passing every previous inspection. Victoria's voice carried bitter experience. I learned that fighting the system means destroying everyone you care about. So you joined it instead. I chose to work within it. Try to minimize damage where possible, protect people when I can. Victoria leaned forward. But I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone like what? Someone with nothing to lose. Victoria's gaze was intense. You're not from here. Your family doesn't have businesses they can threaten or reputations they can destroy. You're free in a way the rest of us aren't. Chloe considered this analysis. Victoria Sterling was more perceptive than she'd realized. But she was also wrong. About one crucial detail, Chloe had everything to lose. Her carefully constructed identity, her mother's safety, the promise she'd made to never use her training again. What exactly are you asking me to do? Nothing you weren't already planning. Victoria closed her laptop. Brittany Walsh has terrorized the school for 3 years. She's driven away good teachers, destroyed promising students, and corrupted every institution that should have protected us. Someone needs to stop her. And you think that someone is me? I think you're the first person she's encountered who isn't afraid of her. Victoria stood to leave. The question is whether you're strong enough to finish what you've started. After Victoria left, Chloe remained in the library until the final bell, using the time to complete her reconnaissance of Jefferson Valley's power structure. The picture that emerged was disturbing: a network of corruption that extended from the school board to the city council, all protected by a police chief who viewed his daughter's sadistic behavior as harmless teenage fun. The system was designed to protect predators like Brittany Walsh while silencing their victims. But every system had breaking points, and Chloe was beginning to identify exactly where to apply pressure. Her phone buzzed with another unknown number. "Enjoying your research? You're more thorough than I expected. This should be interesting." Someone had been monitoring her online activity. The level of surveillance suggested resources beyond typical high school capabilities. Brittany Walsh wasn't just cruel and connected, she was technologically sophisticated. Chloe deleted the message without responding, but made a mental note to adjust her digital security protocols. She'd underestimated her opponent's capabilities, a mistake that could prove costly. The final period of the day was a P-government, taught by Mr. Harold Brennan, a rumpled man in his 50s who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The irony of studying democratic principles in a school controlled by hereditary power wasn't lost on Chloe. She found herself seated between Ashley Sinclair and Rebecca Chun, a placement that was obviously deliberate. Throughout the lesson on checks and balances in constitutional government, both girls maintained a steady stream of harassment disguised as participation. "Miss Martinez," Mr. Brennan called suddenly, "can you give us an example of how power can be abused in democratic institutions?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around the room, students turned to watch, sensing potential drama. Rebecca Chun smirked, clearly expecting Chloe to embarrass herself. "Local corruption," Chloe replied calmly. "When powerful families use their positions across multiple branches of government to protect criminal behavior while silencing opposition through intimidation and economic pressure." The classroom fell silent. Mr. Brennan's face went pale, and even the Sinclair twins looked genuinely shocked. Rebecca's smirk vanished entirely. "That's a very specific example," Mr. Brennan managed. "History is full of them," Chloe continued, her voice carrying subtle steel. "The key is understanding that corruption thrives when good people choose silence over justice." She could feel Brittany Walsh's fury radiating from across the room like heat from a forge. The message had been delivered and received. This was no longer just about high school social dynamics. It was about exposing a system of institutional corruption that had operated in darkness for years. After class, Ashley Sinclair blocked Chloe's path to the door. "You have no idea what you just did." "I answered a question about the government," Chloe replied mildly. "You insulted her family. In public." Ashley's voice dropped to a whisper. "Brittany is going to destroy you for that. She's welcome to try." But as Chloe left Jefferson Valley that afternoon, she knew the real war was just beginning. She'd drawn blood with words, exposed the corruption that everyone knew but no one discussed. There would be consequences, and they would be severe. The question was whether she was prepared for what came next. Because Brittany Walsh had resources that extended far beyond high school social networks, and she'd just been given every reason to use them. In her car, Chloe made a secure phone call to a number she'd hoped never to use again. "It's Phoenix," she said when the voice answered. "I need extraction protocols activated. The situation has escalated beyond acceptable parameters." The response was immediate. Negative. Mission parameters unchanged. Maintain cover and complete integration. They're connected to law enforcement. If they investigate my background, then don't give them reason to investigate. Handle the situation within established guidelines. The line went dead, leaving Chloe staring at her phone in the empty parking lot. She was on her own, cut off from the resources that had kept her safe. For 3 years. Whatever happened next, she would have to handle it without backup. As she drove home through the tree-lined streets of Jefferson Valley, Chloe caught glimpses of the real community beneath the postcard-perfect facade. Boarded storefronts that had once thrived before challenging the wrong family. Houses with for-sale signs that had been there for months, their owners driven away by systematic harassment. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been silenced, intimidated, or destroyed by a system that protected predators. Victoria Sterling had been right about one thing someone needed to stop: Brittany Walsh. The question was whether Chloe could do it without becoming the very thing she'd been trained to hunt. Wednesday dawned gray and oppressive, with clouds that seemed to press down on Jefferson Valley like a weight. Chloe arrived at school to find something had shifted overnight. Students who had previously ignored her now watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Word of her government class challenge had spread through the teenage communication network with viral efficiency. Her locker bore no new decorations, but that absence felt more ominous than the previous day's harassment. Brittany Walsh was planning something bigger, more devastating. The calm before the storm. In first period, AP Biology, Dr. Sarah Mitchell assigned partner work on cellular regeneration and adaptation. Chloe found herself paired with Elena Rodriguez, a quiet Latina girl who seemed perpetually nervous about drawing attention. "You really called out the Walsh family yesterday," Elena whispered as they examined slides under the microscope. "People are saying you have a death wish." "People say a lot of things," Chloe replied, adjusting the focus to reveal the intricate structure of reptilian scales. "What do you say?" Elena glanced around nervously before leaning closer. "I say maybe it's time someone stood up to them. My cousin Miguel tried to report Brittany for harassment 2 years ago. He ended up arrested on fake drug charges that somehow stuck despite everyone knowing they were planted." The microscope revealed fascinating details about how snake scales provided both protection and flexibility. Nature's perfect armor, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Chloe found herself studying the cellular structure with genuine interest, noting how each scale overlapped with its neighbors to create an impenetrable defense system. What happened to Miguel? Juvenile detention, then his family moved to Arizona. Chief Walsh personally delivered the arrest warrant. Elena's voice carried bitter experience. Said it broke his heart to see such a promising young man fall into drugs, but you don't believe he was using it. Miguel was training for the Olympics in swimming. He never even drank coffee. Elena's hands shook slightly as she prepared the next slide. That's what they do to people who threaten them. They don't just destroy you, they make it look like you destroyed yourself. During lunch, Chloe discovered that the systematic exclusion had evolved into something more subtle but equally effective. No one prevented her from sitting anywhere, but conversations died whenever she approached. Students suddenly remembered urgent homework or mysterious appointments. She found herself eating alone, not through overt hostility, but through a carefully orchestrated social vacuum. Thomas Kim broke the quarantine by joining her at the isolated table, though his hands trembled slightly as he unpacked his lunch. "You're braver than I thought," Chloe observed. "I'm not brave at all," Thomas admitted. "I'm terrified. But I'm more scared of what happens if people like you give up." Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Derek Morrison, Kevin Morrison's younger brother. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Same sandy hair, same earnest blue eyes, same nervous energy that suggested a prey animal constantly scanning for predators. "Can I sit with you guys?" Derek asked quietly. Thomas nodded toward an empty chair. "Your brother was Kevin, right? The one who got destroyed by Brittany Walsh for accidentally bumping into her." Derek's voice carried a weight far too heavy for his 16 years. "I've been invisible ever since, hoping she'd forget our family exists." "Why risk sitting with us then?" Chloe asked. Derek studied her face intently. "Because yesterday you did something nobody's done in 3 years. You looked her in the eye and told the truth about what this place really is. As they ate in relative peace, Derek shared fragments of his brother's story. Kevin Morrison had been student body treasurer, honor roll student, captain of the debate team. His accidental collision with Brittany in the hallway had been genuinely accidental security. Footage proved it. But footage could be edited, witnesses could be pressured, and even objective truth became malleable when filtered through institutional corruption. The fake social media accounts were just the beginning, Derek explained. They planted things. In his locker, had girls claim he'd sent inappropriate messages. Teachers started reporting behavioral problems that never actually happened. By the end, even Kevin wondered if he was losing his mind. Gaslighting, Chloe said quietly. Systematic psychological manipulation designed to make the victim question their own sanity. You know about that stuff? I know about a lot of things. Chloe's voice carried implications that made both boys study her. With new curiosity, the conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Victoria Sterling, who slid into the fourth chair without invitation. Her expression was grim, purposeful. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "All of us." "After school, old music building, second floor practice room." "Why there?" Thomas asked. "Because it's the only place in this school that isn't monitored." Victoria's gaze swept the cafeteria, noting the strategic placement of students who might be listening. "They've got cameras, recording devices, even student informants throughout the main building. But the old music rooms have acoustic dampening. That interferes with the electronic surveillance." The revelation that Jefferson Valley operated under constant surveillance shouldn't have surprised Chloe. But the extent of it was impressive. Brittany Walsh commanded resources that rivaled professional intelligence operations. "What makes you think I'll be there?" Chloe asked. "Because you want to know what really happened to your predecessor." The words hit like a physical blow. Chloe's composure never wavered, but Victoria caught the momentary stillness that indicated she'd struck home. "What predecessor?" "The last student who tried to stand up to Brittany Walsh, before Kevin Morrison, before Miguel Rodriguez. Someone whose story never made it into the official records." Victoria's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Someone who disappeared so completely that even mentioning their name became dangerous." The rest of lunch passed in tense silence. Chloe's mind raced through possibilities and implications. If Victoria Sterling knew about a previous incident that had been completely suppressed, it suggested the Walsh family's influence extended even deeper than she'd calculated. Afternoon classes blurred together in a haze of anticipation and dread. In a P literature, Ms. Patricia Wong assigned analysis of Greek tragedies, focusing on themes of hubris and nemesis. The irony wasn't lost on anyone as students discussed how pride led to downfall, how justice eventually claimed even the most powerful. "Miss Martinez," Ms. Wong called suddenly, "what do you think motivates someone to challenge authority even when they know the cost will be severe?" The question felt loaded with meaning. Around the room, students leaned forward, sensing significance in the moment. "Sometimes," Chloe replied carefully, "the cost of silence is higher than the cost of speaking truth." After school, the old music building felt like a tomb. Dust particles danced in shafts of light that filtered through dirty windows. The acoustic tiles that lined the walls resounded so completely that even footsteps seemed muffled. Victoria was already waiting in the designated practice room, along with someone Chloe didn't recognize, a girl with prematurely gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much. "This is Sarah Chun," Victoria said as Thomas and Derek arrived, Rebecca's older sister. "She graduated 3 years ago, but she has a story you need to hear." Sarah Chun looked like someone who'd aged decades in a few short years. Her hands shook slightly as she spoke, and her voice carried the hollow quality of someone recounting trauma. "Her name was Maya Delacrea," Sarah began. "French exchange student, senior year. Beautiful, brilliant, completely fearless. She came here expecting American high school to be like the movies, all school spirit and harmless drama. What happened to her? Derek asked quietly. She caught Brittany cheating on the sats. Not just getting answers from someone else, actually. Coordinating a sophisticated network that sold test answers to wealthy students across 3 school districts. Chloe leaned forward. She reported it. She tried to. Went to the administration, showed them evidence, and demanded an investigation. Sarah's laugh held no humor. That was her first mistake. The second was thinking that truth mattered more than money. The story unfolded like a horror novel. Maya Delacroix had been systematically destroyed through a campaign that made Kevin Morrison's experience look gentle. Fake immigration violations, planted evidence of terrorism connections, accusations of attempting to seduce teachers. Every institution that should have protected her school, police, even immigration services turned against her with coordinated precision. She fought back, Sarah continued. Had some kind of martial arts training. When they cornered her in the old gym, she put 3 boys in the hospital. Self-defense? Thomas asked. Technically. But when you're an exchange student with no family connections going up against the police chief's daughter, technicalities don't matter. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. They sent her back to France with a criminal record that destroyed any chance of getting into university. Last I heard, she was working in a factory outside Paris, too traumatized to even talk about what happened here. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Maya Delacroix had been everything Chloe was trying not to be visible. Confrontational, naive about the true nature of power, and she'd been destroyed for it. Why are you telling us this? Chloe asked. Because you're walking the same path she did, Victoria replied. The public challenge, the refusal to submit, the growing group of supporters. It's all exactly how Maya started. And because there's something else, Sarah added reluctantly. Something that never made it into any official report. Maya wasn't just some exchange student with basic self-defense training. What was she? Sarah exchanged glances with Victoria before continuing. My sister Rebecca isn't just good with computers, she's brilliant. After Maya disappeared, Rebecca hacked into some seriously protected databases trying to find out who she really was, and Maya Delacroix was a cover identity. Her real name was classified, but Rebecca found fragments. Military training records, psychological evaluations, mission parameters. Sarah's voice shook. She wasn't a high school student. She was some kind of government operative investigating the Walsh family's connections to international corruption. The revelation hit Chloe like a physical blow. Maya Delacroix hadn't been a naive exchange student, she'd been a professional. Someone with training and resources and institutional backing, and even she had been destroyed. Rebecca found something else, Sarah continued. Financial records, showing payments from offshore accounts to Chief Walsh's personal holdings. The SAT cheating ring wasn't just about test scores, it was money laundering for something much bigger. Where's Rebecca now? Chloe asked quietly, scared silent. After she found that information, someone broke into our house. Nothing was stolen, but Rebecca's computer was destroyed and her backup drives were missing. She got the message. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. That's why I'm here. Because maybe if we work together, we can do what Maya couldn't. Thomas cleared his throat nervously. What exactly are you suggesting we do? Expose them, Victoria said firmly. All of it. The harassment, the corruption, the systematic destruction of anyone who threatens their power. But we do it smart this time. We don't rely on institutional channels they control. How? Derek asked of Victoria, pulled out a tablet, showing them a carefully constructed plan. Social media campaign. Anonymous documentation. Independent media outlets that can't be pressured by local authorities. We turn their own surveillance system against them by making everything public. Chloe studied the plan with professional eyes. It was sophisticated, well-researched, potentially effective. It was also incredibly dangerous for everyone involved. "They'll retaliate," she said quietly. "They're already retaliating," Victoria replied. "The question is whether we fight back or let them destroy us one by one." As the group discussed strategy and logistics, Chloe found herself facing an impossible choice. She could maintain her cover, endure whatever harassment Brittany Walsh devised, and hope to survive until graduation. Or she could reveal enough of her true capabilities to protect these brave, naive children who were walking into a war they couldn't win. "I need time to think about this," she said finally. "How much time?" Victoria asked. 24 hours. "Meet here tomorrow, same time. I'll have an answer then." As they prepared to leave, Sarah caught Chloe's arm. "There's one more thing." Rebecca found fragments of Maya's real mission parameters. She wasn't here to investigate the Walsh family specifically. What was she investigating? A network of compromised officials in small towns across America. People being recruited and controlled by foreign interests through blackmail and financial incentives. Sarah's voice was barely audible. Jefferson Valley wasn't the target, it was a training ground for something much bigger. The implications were staggering. If Sarah was right, the Walsh family's corruption wasn't an isolated local problem. It was part of a systematic effort to compromise American institutions from the ground up. That night, Chloe sat in her modest apartment, staring at a secure phone that represented her last connection to the life she'd left behind. Maya Delacroix had been sent here as an operative and been destroyed. The system that should have protected her had failed completely. But Chloe wasn't Maya Delacroix. She'd been trained by different people, in different ways, for different purposes. And unlike Maya, she'd learned the most important lesson of all sometimes. The only way to win was to become the very thing your enemies feared most. She made the call. "This is Phoenix," she said when the encrypted line connected. "I need complete operational authority for the Jefferson Valley situation. Negative, maintain cover protocols. The previous operative was compromised and extracted. The situation has escalated beyond original parameters. I'm requesting permission to implement advanced countermeasures." A long pause. "What level of exposure are you requesting?" Chloe looked out her window at the quiet streets of Jefferson Valley, thinking about Maya Delacroix working in a French factory, about Kevin Morrison in therapy, about Miguel Rodriguez rebuilding his life in Arizona, about all the victims who'd been silenced and destroyed. Whatever it takes to complete the mission. Another pause, longer this time. Authorized. But Phoenix, once you go active, there's no going back to passive observation. "I understand. Good hunting." The line went dead, leaving Chloe alone with the weight of what came next. Tomorrow she will meet with Victoria's group and give them her answer. But tonight, she had preparations to make in the abandoned dance studio. She moved through forms that had been classified since their development. Ancient techniques adapted for modern warfare, taught only to those who'd proven themselves worthy of such dangerous knowledge. Maya Delacroix had fought like a student with basic training. Tomorrow, Brittany Walsh would learn what it meant to face a true predator. The quiet girl from Jefferson Valley was about to shed her skin and reveal the serpent beneath. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of electric tension that precedes thunderstorms. Chloe moved through her pre-dawn routine with mechanical precision combat, conditioning exercises that would have been impossible for any normal teenager, weapons maintenance on items that officially didn't exist, and secure communications with handlers who operated in shadows deeper than most government agencies acknowledged. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed no trace of the previous night's transformation. To any observer, she remained the quiet scholarship student trying to avoid attention. But beneath the carefully maintained facade, something fundamental had shifted. Phoenix was awake now, and Phoenix had very different rules of engagement. She arrived at Jefferson Valley to find the atmosphere changed yet again. Students moved with nervous energy, conversations died mid-sentence when she passed, and even teachers seemed on edge. Word had somehow spread that something significant was brewing, though no one could articulate exactly what. Her locker contained a single item that hadn't been there the previous day, a manila envelope with her name, written in elegant script. Inside, a formal invitation printed on expensive paper. Ms. Martinez, you are cordially invited to discuss your future at Jefferson Valley. Principal's office, 3:15 p.m. Your attendance is not optional. Chief R. Walsh, the message was clear. They'd moved beyond high school power plays into adult consequences. Chief Walsh was personally intervening, which meant Chloe's public challenge had achieved its intended effect. She'd forced them to reveal the true scope of their authority. First period advanced chemistry provided an unexpected opportunity for reconnaissance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had assigned lab partners for a complex synthesis experiment, and Chloe found herself working alongside Jennifer Walsh, Brittany's younger sister, a sophomore who'd previously been invisible in the family's shadow. Jennifer moved with the same predatory grace as her older sister, but something was different. While Brittany radiated confidence and cruelty, Jennifer seemed burdened by knowledge she wished she didn't possess. Careful with the sulfuric acid, Jennifer warned as they began the experiment. It's more dangerous than most people realize. Like your family? Chloe asked quietly, measuring out precise quantities with steady hands. Jennifer's pipette froze halfway to the beaker. Around them, other students focused on their own experiments, providing cover for conversation that would have been impossible in more public spaces. You don't know what you're dealing with, Jennifer whispered. This isn't just about Brittany being mean to people. There are things, connections that go way beyond high school drama. Such as… Jennifer glanced around nervously before continuing. They're chemical reactions. My father doesn't just run the police department. He coordinates with federal agencies on things he won't discuss at home. Brittany thinks she's protected because Daddy's the police chief, but she doesn't understand what Daddy really does. The synthesis required precise timing and careful temperature control. As they worked, Jennifer revealed fragments of a much larger picture. Chief Walsh wasn't just a small-town police official. He was a coordinator for what she described as special operations that involved multiple government agencies and international partnerships. Why are you telling me this? Chloe asked as they monitored the reaction's progress. Because someone tried to warn Maya de la Creo, and nobody listened. Jennifer's voice carried genuine fear. My father destroyed her, not because she threatened Brittany, but because she got too close to something classified. What is classified? The kind where people disappear permanently. Jennifer's hands shook as she adjusted the burner temperature. Maya thought she was investigating local corruption. She had no idea she'd stumbled into a counterintelligence operation that's been running for years. The implications were staggering. If Jennifer was telling the truth, then Chief Walsh wasn't just protecting his daughter's cruelty, he was protecting a federal operation that used Jefferson Valley as cover for activities that couldn't be conducted through official channels. Your meeting this afternoon, Jennifer continued. It's not about school discipline. My father's been authorized to handle you as a potential security threat. During lunch, Chloe found Victoria's resistance group assembled at their usual isolated table, but the mood was drastically different from the previous day's cautious optimism. Thomas Kim looked pale and exhausted. Derek Morrison kept checking his phone with increasing anxiety, and Victoria herself seemed to have aged years overnight. We need to call this off, Derek said without preamble. My parents got a call from the city attorney's office. Something about potential liability if I'm involved in activities that could damage Jefferson Valley's reputation. Mine too, Thomas added miserably. Dad's company suddenly has 3 building permits held up in review. Mom's medical practice is being audited by the state licensing board. Victoria's jaw was set in grim determination. They're applying pressure to isolate you, she told Chloe. Classic intimidation tactics: hurt the people around the target until the target surrenders. It's working, Derek said quietly. I can't ask my family to sacrifice everything for this. Chloe studied each face around the table, calculating loyalty, commitment, and breaking points. These were good people, brave in their own way, but they were civilians caught in a professional operation. They had families to protect, futures to consider, normal lives to preserve. You're all out, she said simply. What? Victoria's voice rose slightly before she caught herself and lowered it. We agreed to work together on this. That was before I understood what we're really dealing with. Chloe's voice carried finality. That brooked no argument. This isn't high school bullying anymore. It's national security, and none of you signed up for that level of risk. So you're just giving up? Thomas asked. I'm protecting you, all of you. Chloe gathered her things. Forget we ever had this conversation. Go back to your normal lives. And let me handle this my way. What is your way? Victoria demanded. Chloe paused at the edge of the table, studying Victoria's face with new appreciation. The student body president had shown remarkable courage and strategic thinking. Under different circumstances, she might have made an excellent operative. You don't want to know, Chloe said finally. Trust me on that. She left them sitting there, confused and frustrated, but safe. Their involvement had served its purpose, forcing Chloe to understand the true nature of her opposition and providing cover for her initial reconnaissance. Now they needed to disappear before they became casualties in a war they couldn't understand. The afternoon stretched endlessly as Chloe attended classes while running final operational preparations. In a P literature, she submitted an essay on the theme of identity in modern fiction that contained encoded messages for her handlers. During study hall, she used school computers to establish digital dead drops and communication protocols that would survive whatever happened next. By 3:10 p.m., she was ready for whatever Chief Walsh had planned. The principal's office had been transformed since her last visit. Additional chairs suggested this wouldn't be a simple disciplinary meeting. Chief Richard Walsh dominated the space, a large man in his 50s with graying hair and eyes that missed nothing. Beside him sat a woman in expensive suit who screamed. Federal authority despite carrying no visible identification. Principal Coleman looked distinctly uncomfortable, relegated to a corner chair like a spectator at his own event. Brittany Walsh was notably absent, though her influence hung over the proceedings like smoke. Miss Martinez, Chief Walsh began without preamble. Or should I call you by your operational designation? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Chloe had prepared for this possibility. They'd somehow identified her true nature, possibly through facial recognition software or digital forensics on her background documentation. I'm a student at Jefferson Valley High School, she replied calmly. The woman in the suit leaned forward. Agent Martinez, I'm Deputy Director Sarah Fleming, Department of Homeland Security. We need to discuss your unauthorized presence in a controlled operational environment. I don't know what you're talking about. Phoenix Initiative, Chief Walsh said softly. Counterintelligence operations targeting foreign recruitment of domestic assets. You're here investigating the same network that compromised Maya de la Crea's mission 3 years ago. The revelation that they knew her operational details meant someone at a very high level had provided information. Either her mission had been compromised from the beginning, or there was a security breach that went to the highest levels of government. Your mission parameters, Deputy Director Fleming continued, specifically prohibited direct engagement with local assets. Yet you've systematically exposed yourself through confrontational behavior that threatens ongoing operations. What ongoing operations? Chief Walsh smiled, and for the first time, Chloe understood why Maya Delacroix had been so thoroughly destroyed. He wasn't protecting his daughter's bullying. He was protecting a carefully constructed counterintelligence network that used Jefferson Valley as a honeypot for foreign recruitment operations. The Walsh family corruption, he explained, is a carefully maintained theater. We allow controlled exposure to our supposed vulnerabilities to attract foreign intelligence services seeking to compromise American officials. Every attempt to blackmail us, every offer of financial incentive, every recruitment approach is documented and traced back to source. Brittany's behavior, Deputy Director Fleming added, creates the appearance of a dysfunctional family dynamic that foreign services believe they can exploit. Your interference threatens to expose the artificial nature of our supposed weaknesses. The operational picture suddenly became clear. Jefferson Valley wasn't a corrupt small town. It was an elaborate counterintelligence trap. The Walsh family's apparent corruption was bait designed to attract foreign operatives, who could then be identified, tracked, and neutralized. Maya Delacroix stumbled into your operation, Chloe said, understanding flooding through her. Maya Delacroix was sent here by a compartmentalized unit that didn't know about our activities, Chief Walsh confirmed. Her investigation threatened to expose years of careful positioning. We had no choice but to extract her permanently. And now you want to extract me. We want you to complete your original mission parameters, Deputy Director Fleming said firmly. Passive observation and integration. Your confrontational approach has already attracted too much attention. Principal Coleman finally found his voice. Are you saying this entire disciplinary meeting is some kind of federal operation? Mr. Coleman, Chief Walsh said gently, you've been briefed on the need-to-know basis. This conversation never happened. And Missy Martinez will continue as a normal student facing standard disciplinary measures. What standard disciplinary measures? Chloe asked. Deputy Director Fleming consulted a tablet. 3-day suspension for disruptive behavior, during which time you'll report to a counseling facility for attitude adjustment and re-education on appropriate student conduct. The euphemisms were clear. They intended to remove her from Jefferson Valley for intensive debriefing and possibly memory modification. She would return as a compliant student who caused no further disruption to their operations. And if I refuse, then you'll join Maya Delacroix in permanent extraction, Chief Walsh said softly. Though in your case, there won't be a factory job in France waiting. The meeting concluded with paperwork that looked official but was meaningless. Chloe was given 48 hours to report to the specified facility, with dire warnings about the consequences of attempting to flee or expose the operation. As she left the principal's office, Chloe's mind raced through possibilities and options. She'd walked into a trap more sophisticated than anything she'd anticipated. The Walsh family wasn't her enemy. They were federal assets protected by the highest levels of government authority. But that protection came with limitations. Counterintelligence. Operations required maintaining credible cover, which meant certain behaviors had to remain consistent with the established patterns. Brittany Walsh could continue terrorizing students because that behavior supported the family's corrupt facade, which meant there was still a way to win. That afternoon, Chloe made her way to the abandoned dance studio for what might be her final training session. But instead of going through her usual routines, she began preparing for something much more dangerous, a direct confrontation that would force everyone involved to reveal their true capabilities. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Extraction authorized. Report to designated coordinates within 24 hours. Mission parameters changed to immediate exfiltration. Chloe stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Her handlers wanted to pull her out now that the situation had become complicated. But pulling out meant abandoning every student who'd been victimized by this elaborate charade. Maya Delacroix had tried to work within the system and been destroyed. Chloe would take a different approach. Sometimes the only way to expose a lie was to force it into the light. Regardless of the consequences, she began her final preparations, knowing that tomorrow would bring either victory or destruction. But for the first time since arriving at Jefferson Valley, she felt the cold certainty of a predator moving toward its prey. The quiet student was gone forever. Tomorrow, Brittany Walsh would meet Phoenix, and the carefully constructed counterintelligence operation would learn what happened when they underestimated someone who'd been trained to hunt monsters in human form. The real question was whether Jefferson Valley would survive what came next. Friday arrived like the final act of a tragedy nobody wanted to witness. Chloe walked through Jefferson Valley's halls knowing that every step took her closer to a confrontation that would reshape everything. Students sensed the electric tension. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when she passed, and even teachers seemed to hold their breath. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Force Brittany Walsh into a situation where she had to reveal her true capabilities, thereby exposing the artificial nature of her family's supposed corruption. If the Walshes were really federal assets maintaining a cover story, they would have resources and training that no genuine small-town bullies would possess. Chloe found her target in the old gymnasium during lunch, exactly where she'd expected. Brittany held court with her usual entourage, but something was different. The casual cruelty had been replaced by focused intensity. She knew something was coming. "Brittany," Chloe called across the empty space, her voice echoing off concrete. "Walls, we need to finish this." The response was immediate. Phones disappeared into pockets with professional efficiency. The twins flanked Brittany in a formation too precise for random positioning. Rebecca Chun moved to block the main exit while maintaining perfect sightlines to potential threats. "Finally ready to crawl?" Brittany asked, but her smile was sharper. Now more predatory. "Time to see what you really are." What happened next unfolded with brutal efficiency. Brittany moved first, but her attack wasn't the wild swing of an angry teenager. It was a calculated strike aimed at nerve clusters that would disable without causing visible damage. Professional training disguised as teenage aggression. Chloe slipped the attack with serpentine grace, her counterstrike finding pressure points that dropped Ashley Sinclair before she could fully engage. Madison rushed forward with coordinated precision that screamed military conditioning, only to find herself redirected into the gym's wall padding with enough force to daze, but not permanently injure. Rebecca Chun produced a device that looked like a phone but emitted an electromagnetic pulse designed to disable recording equipment. Except Chloe had expected that, and her backup systems were hardened against standard jamming protocols. "Impressive," Brittany acknowledged, circling like a predator evaluating dangerous prey. "But you're still outnumbered." "Am I?" The doors burst open as Victoria Sterling entered with Thomas Kim and Derek Morrison. But they weren't alone. Behind them came students. Chloe had never spoken to kids who'd been terrorized into silence for years, now finally finding courage in numbers. "Nobody's recording this," Rebecca called out, confident in her jamming device. Actually, Victoria held up a military-grade recorder that cut through electromagnetic interference. "Some of us came prepared." The tactical situation shifted dramatically. Brittany's team had been trained for contained operations with limited witnesses. They weren't prepared for a dozen teenagers with recording devices that couldn't be jammed. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Brittany snarled, dropping her high school persona entirely. "This is classified federal business." "Then maybe you shouldn't have been conducting it in a high school," Thomas replied, surprising everyone with his newfound courage. The confrontation escalated as Madison Sinclair revealed training that went far beyond teenage athletics. Her strikes were precise, economical, designed to incapacitate rather than inflict obvious damage. But Chloe had been trained by people who wrote the manuals these girls had studied. Every attack was anticipated, redirected, turned against its source. Brittany's team found themselves fighting someone who moved like flowing water, impossible to pin down, deadly when she chose to strike back. Enough. The voice belonged to Chief Walsh, who entered with Deputy Director Fleming and a tactical team that had been waiting just outside. "Stand down, all of you, Dad." Brittany looked genuinely confused as federal agents secured the gymnasium. "What's happening?" "The operation is blown," Fleming announced grimly. 3 years of careful positioning compromised because you couldn't maintain operational discipline. The truth spilled out like water through a broken dam. Jefferson Valley had been a counterintelligence honeypot, using the appearance of corruption to attract foreign recruitment attempts. Brittany's bullying had been encouraged because it made the family appear dysfunctional and vulnerable to external manipulation. But the operation had a fatal flaw. It required genuine victims to maintain credibility. Students like Kevin Morrison and Miguel Rodriguez had been sacrificed to preserve the fiction of Walsh family corruption. "You used us." Derek Morrison's voice shook with rage. "You destroyed my brother to protect your fake criminal empire." "Acceptable losses for national security," Chief Walsh replied coldly, "though apparently not acceptable enough to maintain operational security." Victoria stepped forward, her recording device still active. "Every word of this is being broadcast live to news outlets across the country. Your cover is blown." The federal agents moved to confiscate the devices, but Chloe had anticipated this as well. The recordings were already uploaded to secure servers beyond their reach, distributed through networks they couldn't access or control. "Agent Martinez, Deputy Director." Fleming's voice carried deadly authority. "You will order the immediate cessation of all transmissions. Phoenix doesn't take orders from compromised operations." Chloe replied calmly. The admission that she was indeed a federal operative sent shockwaves through the assembled students, but instead of fear, many faces showed understanding. Someone had finally been on their side all along. "Your mission parameters," Chief Walsh began. "Where to investigate foreign recruitment networks." "Which I have. The network was you." Chloe's voice carried the cold certainty of someone who'd solved a complex puzzle. "You weren't running a counterintelligence operation. You were running an actual criminal enterprise and using federal cover to protect it." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Fleming's tactical team hesitated, suddenly uncertain about their authorization to act. "Prove it," Fleming demanded. Chloe pulled out a tablet that had been hidden in her backpack. Financial records, communication intercepts, shipping manifests, evidence of genuine corruption hidden beneath the counterintelligence facade. "The SAT cheating ring was real money laundering," she explained as data flowed across the screen. "The harassment campaigns silenced witnesses to actual federal crimes. Maya Delacreo wasn't destroyed for threatening a fake operation. She was murdered for discovering a real one." Principal Coleman, who had remained silent throughout the confrontation, finally found his voice. "Murdered?" "Maya Delacreo died in a car accident 6 months after her extraction," Chloe continued relentlessly. "Single vehicle collision on a clear day with perfect road conditions. Brake failure that couldn't be explained." The gymnasium fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't about protecting national security. It was about protecting a criminal network that had infiltrated federal law enforcement. "You have no proof," Chief Walsh said, but his confidence was cracking. "I have everything," Chloe replied. "Bank records, communication intercepts, witness testimony from foreign contacts who thought they were dealing with corrupt officials." Her smile was razor sharp. "They were right, just not in the way they expected." The tactical team slowly lowered their weapons as they realized they'd been used to protect actual criminals rather than legitimate operations. Deputy Director Fleming's face had gone pale as she understood the scope of the deception. "All units stand down," she ordered quietly. "Chief Walsh, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and treason." What followed was chaos. Federal agents who thought they were protecting national security suddenly found themselves arresting the people they'd been ordered to protect. Students who'd been terrorized for years watched their tormentors taken away in handcuffs. Brittany Walsh, stripped of her federal protection and family authority, looked small and lost as the artificial power structure collapsed around her. Without the resources to enforce her will through intimidation, she was just another teenager who'd learned cruelty as a survival mechanism. "What happens to us now?" she asked Chloe quietly as the arrests continued. "That's up to you," Chloe replied. "You can learn to be better, or you can become exactly what your father raised you to be. But you'll have to do it without federal protection." 3 months later, Jefferson Valley had transformed completely. The Walsh family network had been dismantled, their assets seized, their political connections severed. New leadership at every level worked to rebuild institutions that had been corrupted for decades. Chloe Martinez graduated quietly, her cover identity maintained through the transition. Official records showed she'd been a transfer student who'd helped expose corruption at her new school. The truth about the Phoenix Initiative remained classified, but the results spoke for themselves. Brittany Walsh entered a rehabilitation program for children of criminal families. Without the twisted support system that had encouraged her worst impulses, she began the long process of learning empathy and accountability. It would take years, but change was possible for anyone willing to do the work. Victoria Sterling became the youngest person ever elected to the town council, running on a platform of transparency and accountability. Thomas Kim and Derek Morrison started a support group for victims of institutional abuse that eventually spread to schools across the country. And in a small apartment overlooking Jefferson Valley's restored downtown, Chloe packed her few belongings for another assignment in another town that needed someone willing to stand up to monsters in human form. Her phone buzzed with a final message from Brittany Walsh. "Thank you for showing me who I could be instead of who I was raised to become." Chloe smiled as she deleted the message and prepared for whatever came next. Sometimes the greatest victory wasn't destroying your enemies. It was helping them find the strength to destroy the worst parts of themselves. The quiet girl who'd entered Jefferson Valley hoping to remain invisible was leaving as someone who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was refuse to let evil flourish in darkness. Not every monster could be redeemed, but every victim deserves someone willing to fight for them. As she drove away from Jefferson Valley for the last time, Chloe caught a glimpse of students walking to school with their heads held high, no longer afraid of the predators that had once ruled their halls. That was worth everything else. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.